Welcome, everyone, to the Deep Dive. We're here to take those really complex topics, cut through all the noise, and just distill them down into the most important bits of knowledge.
Right, helping you get truly well-informed, quickly but also thoroughly.
Exactly. And today, we are plunging into a case that has, captivated, confused, and frankly, chilled the nation for decades now. The JonBenét Ramsey homicide.
It's a name pretty much everyone recognizes, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But how many people really grasp the bewildering layers of evidence, the conflicting theories, and just the sheer frustration of an investigation that is still officially unsolved all these years later?
It's a tragedy that just continues to resonate, doesn't it? It has this profound emotional weight, partly because it was so high profile, partly the relentless media focus, definitely.
And certainly because the answers have just remained so elusive.
That's right. So our mission today is to take a really deep dive into this pretty extensive stack of sources we've gathered, police reports, family statements, forensic findings, even the very latest developments.
We want to unpack the critical events of that Christmas, dissect the controversial evidence that came out, and explore the, frankly, myriad reasons why this high-profile child homicide is still an open wound in the public mind.
Yeah, we want to give you, our listener, a clear, structured understanding, kind of sift through all the material to provide a comprehensive but, digestible overview.
Okay, let's get into it. Let's start with a portrait of JonBenét herself and the affluent, very public world she lived in. JonBenét Patricia Ramsey, born August 6, 1990, in Atlanta, Georgia. She's the younger of two kids, right? An older brother, Burke Ramsey, born in 87.
Correct. And the parents, JonBenét Ramsey, a highly successful CEO, Access Graphics, a computer services company that by 96 was reportedly pulling in over $1 billion a year in revenue. It had been acquired by Lockheed Martin, so big business.
Huge. And then her mother, Patricia Patsy Ramsey, she was a former beauty queen herself, Miss West Virginia, 1977. So you can really picture the kind of family this was. Successful, very visible, living a certain kind of lifestyle.
Indeed, a very prominent family. They moved to Boulder, Colorado back in 1991, quickly established themselves in what's known as a very upscale, affluent community, known for being intellectual, progressive. Right. And Patsy's own background in beauty pageants, well, that notably influenced her decision to get JonBenét into the child pageant circuit. And this was from a really young age.
Yeah, I remember those images.
And it wasn't just a casual thing, JonBenét quickly achieved national prominence, winning titles Little Miss Colorado, America's Royal Miss, National Tiny Miss Beauty. This whole aspect of her life, this sort of meticulously crafted public image as a pageant star, it later became this huge focal point for the media scrutiny and, public perception after she died. It almost defined her in a way that frankly overshadowed who she was as just a kid.
Absolutely. Those images of her in the full pageant gear, they became iconic, didn't they? Almost synonymous with the case itself. And it really colored how the public saw the whole family, often unfairly.
Yeah, it did.
It just reduced a child to a costume, really. But despite the pageants, people who knew JonBenét described her as, vibrant, outgoing, energetic, talented in dance and performance. She was enrolled in kindergarten at High Peaks Elementary School there in Boulder.
At her core, just a little girl, full of life, getting ready for Christmas.
Exactly. And their home, too, it was quite distinct, almost like a character in the story, as you said.
It really was. A large, upscale, renovated 1920s Tudor-style mansion. 755 15th Street back then in Boulder's University Hill neighborhood. It's 749 now.
Right.
About 7,000 square feet.
Right.
Multiple levels, a rambling kind of complex structure. And this layout, especially the intricate and somewhat secluded basement, that became critically important later in the investigation. It's very architecture sort of fueled theories.
Which brings us right to Christmas Day, 1996. The last day JonBenét was seen alive by her family. The Ramseys had gone to a holiday party at their friend's house, Fleet and Priscilla White. JonBenét was reportedly seen playing with toys. Appeared completely normal. Just a happy kid enjoying the holiday,
Yeah, just a typical Christmas scene.
The family got home sometime between, 9 and 10 p.m.?
Right.
John Ramsey later said he carried JonBenét upstairs, claiming she was already asleep. Patsy then changed her into pajamas.
Right.
The family went to bed. They had plans for an early flight the next morning, heading off to Michigan for a post-Christmas vacation. Seemed like a perfectly normal Christmas night.
And establishing these seemingly normal last moments, it's crucial, isn't it? It really sets the scene for just the abrupt, horrifying shift that happened in the early hours of December 26th.
It really does.
The family's routine, their plans for a vacation, it provides this baseline, a stark contrast to the chaos that was about to engulf them. It just emphasizes the sudden, violent disruption of what was, by all accounts, a peaceful, festive night, turning into an absolute nightmare.
And chaos it absolutely was. Let's move into the timeline of discovery now. A rapidly unfolding tragedy starting very early on December 26th. So we just recapped Christmas evening, family gets home, JonBenét's tucked in bed, seemingly asleep.
Then, around 5:52 a.m. on December 26th, Patsy Ramsey says she discovers this 2.5-page ransom note, found it on the back staircase of their home.
2.5 pages. That always struck me as long.
It's incredibly long, and this was a critical moment. She immediately wakes John, and then minutes later, 5:52 a.m. precisely, she makes that desperate 911 call, reports JonBenet missing, mentions the note, the very first piece of evidence.
That 911 call. Gosh, it's been analyzed endlessly, hasn't it? Every inflection, every word.
Oh, constant.
Patsy's exact words were, and they're still chilling to hear, we have a kidnapping, there's a note left, and our daughter is gone. But what's really fascinating here, beyond the horror, is just how much scrutiny that brief call got. It became evidence itself, interpreted, reinterpreted.
Right. The analysis applied to that single call was almost surgical, raising questions almost immediately. You had former FBI profiler Greg McCrary, for instance, noting what he thought were, quote, deceptive elements in Patsy's tone, suggesting her distress maybe didn't sound entirely authentic to him.
Right, the tone police were out immediately.
Exactly. But beyond just the tone, audio enhancements done later led to these theories, though highly disputed, of other voices maybe in the background. Some speculated it could have even been Burke's voice, whispering something you couldn't quite make out.
Wow.
Now, this alleged detail, it's unconfirmed, it's a huge point of contention, but it adds this persistent, almost spectral layer of mystery. It fueled early suspicions about maybe an inside job and created this real split in public perception right from the start.
It definitely does. And that's kind of the core of it, isn't it? That 911 call became like a microcosm for the whole investigation.
Well,
Moment. Viewed through countless lenses where even basic facts become battlegrounds. The urgency, in Patsy's words, contrasts so sharply with later critiques of how she sounded, and those alleged background voices just add to this enduring enigma. Makes it impossible for a lot of people to dismiss those initial doubts.
Right. So police arrived shortly after that call. Around 6 a.m., Officer Rick French gets there first, then others follow. What's crucial here is that the initial reports noted no immediate signs of forced entry. No broken locks, no shattered glass, nothing obvious to suggest an intruder just broke in.
Which is where the investigation hits its first and maybe most devastating hurdle. The initial response basically compromised the scene's integrity from the get-go.
Precisely. The house quickly just became crowded. Friends started arriving to support the family of the Whites, who they'd just been with John Fernie.
Right, people wanting to help.
But this influx of people, however well-intentioned, unfortunately had the immediate, profound potential to severely contaminate the crime scene before it was even properly recognized or secured as one. It's almost unimaginable looking back now.
And this is truly a critical, almost unforgivable error in hindsight for many. Police are there, but they do an initial, maybe cursory search, but they missed the basement wine cellar, the very place where JonBenét's body was later found.
Unbelievable.
This failure to secure the scene, all these people wandering through, that initial missed search of a key area, it became major points of criticism against Boulder PD. It undoubtedly hindered the investigation right from the start, creating a forensic nightmare, planting seeds of doubt about the whole process.
Exactly. It exemplifies those foundational challenges. A detective finally realizing the gravity, the child isn't immediately apparent, there's this ransom note, eventually suggests John Ramsey and Fleet White do another, more thorough search of the house themselves.
Asking the potential victim's father to search.
Yeah, an attempt to cover ground the police had missed. A desperate measure maybe, but one that unwittingly led to even further contamination.
And that leads us to the horrific discovery itself. Around 1:05 p.m. that afternoon, almost 8 hours after the 911 call, John Ramsey and Fleet White find JonBenét's body in that basement wine cellar. And then, in a moment that would have just lasting, contentious consequences for the evidence, John Ramsey moves the body, carries her upstairs, away from where she was found.
And this moment marks that grim turn, doesn't it? From missing child to homicide. And it's a critical error in evidence management. Now, While John Ramsey's actions were perhaps driven by pure panic and despair, I mean, a father finding his
I
child,
can only imagine.
it critically impacted the scene's integrity. Moving the body, removing items, it all contributes to loss or transfer of crucial forensic evidence. It blurs the lines of what really happened, creates a challenge investigators would grapple with for decades. It's a prime example of how human emotion, however understandable, can just inadvertently devastate an investigation.
Let's delve deeper now into the scene of the crime itself. Unveil some of those gruesome details that became so central to all the theories. So as we just heard, her body's discovered around 1:05 p.m., December 26th, in that small, windowless room in the basement, the wine cellar. John Ramsey and Fleet White find her during that second search.
Right. And the condition of the body, it provided immediate, disturbing insights into the crime's nature, but at the same time raised deeply troubling questions. She was partially covered by a white blanket, later identified as coming from inside the Ramsey home.
Okay.
Most chillingly, duct tape was placed over her mouth, indicating an attempt to silence her or restrict breathing. And a nylon cord, fashioned into a garrote, a weapon designed for strangulation, was found around her neck.
The garrote.
Yeah, and this garrote was particularly notable. It was made from a broken paintbrush handle, later identified as coming from Patsy Ramsey's own art supplies. And the cord itself was also sourced to the home. Her wrists were also loosely bound with another piece of cord. These are details that immediately draw focus inward, towards the household.
And then, the critical actions right there. John Ramsey removes the duct tape from her mouth, then carries her body upstairs, places it near the Christmas tree. We really can't overstate how much these actions, born of horror and grief maybe, but they severely compromise that crime scene, transferring potential fibers, trace evidence, DNA, making forensic analysis infinitely harder.
Exactly. It's the kind of decision investigators always wish could be undone.
So when you consider the specific nature of these things, the ligatures, the tape, items found in the house, like Patsy's paintbrush handle, the family blanket, what does that suggest? About the perpetrator's intent or their access to the home.
Well, it points towards someone familiar with the premises, doesn't it? Or at the very least, someone who had ample time, undisturbed time, to source these items right there on site and deliberately stage the scene.
Right, it complicates the narrative of just a swift, opportunistic intruder who you'd think would bring their own tools.
Precisely. It doesn't quite fit that picture.
The autopsy findings also offered a vital, if grim, medical story, performed by Dr. John Meyer, the Boulder County coroner. These findings are tough, but essential to understanding the attack.
His findings were stark, very definitive regarding the cause of death. Asphyxia by strangulation, associated with craniocerebral trauma, meaning a skull fracture and brain hemorrhage.
So two distinct fatal injuries.
Correct. She was both struck with severe force and strangled. The blow to the head may have rendered her unconscious or even killed her outright, but the strangulation was also a contributing distinct cause.
Two distinct fatal injuries. That detail is significant. Suggests a sustained, brutal attack. The autopsy detailed an 8.5-inch skull fracture, massive blow to the head. And then the deeply disturbing signs of vaginal trauma, strongly suggesting sexual assault. What makes this even more complex is that finding of chronic inflammation, which led some experts to consider possible prior abuse, though that detail has been vehemently disputed by other experts over the years.
Right, that's a very contentious point.
Importantly, no semen was found. But the possibility of digital penetration, or maybe even staging a sexual assault to mislead investigators, that was still considered as part of the whole crime scene analysis. This detail especially just horrified the public.
Absolutely. And additionally, other significant findings came out that would become highly contentious. Undigested pineapple was found in her stomach.
Ooh, pineapple, yeah.
This matched a bowl of pineapple found upstairs in the kitchen, which had both Patsy's and Burke's fingerprints on it. But the parents denied feeding her pineapple that night. So another layer of mystery, another contradiction in their statements.
Right.
Also, marks were found on her body. Some, particularly the intruder theorist Lou Smith, suggested they could have been from a stun gun, an unknown weapon.
Okay.
But conversely, family involvement theories try to explain those marks as maybe being from train tracks, suggesting a different type of blunt force or pattern, not involving a stun gun.
So the autopsy report itself, while giving the most direct account of her injuries and how she died, also had findings interpreted wildly differently by different sides. The pineapple, the vaginal trauma, Those marks, each piece became a battleground for interpretation, almost like a Rorschach test for people looking for either an intruder or family involvement.
Which brings us to arguably the most scrutinized and contradictory piece of evidence of all, the ransom note.
Oh, the ransom note, found by Patsy on that spiral staircase. This document is less a simple demand and more, like you said, a study in contradictions. Almost theatrical.
It really is something else.
Handwritten on paper from a notepad, confirmed to be from the Ramsey home. Written with a Sharpie pen, also from the house. But what really stood out was its unusual length, 2.5 pages, and the incredible detail. Far more than a typical kidnapper's note.
Way too long.
It demanded $118,000. A figure that almost exactly matched John Ramsey's Christmas bonus that year. A detail that immediately raised eyebrows, right?
It's immediately. Very suspicious coincidence if it was one.
The note also had these stark warnings against calling police, repeatedly threatening JonBenét's life with phrases like, "she dies," repeated for emphasis, just a macabre touch, and signed SBTC, this mysterious acronym, meaning unknown. Theories ranged from Saved by the Cross to Subic Bay Training Center, a nod to John's Navy service.
All sorts of speculation on that.
The whole thing felt, to many people, less like a genuine demand and more like some kind of poorly conceived script.
The controversies around this note are just numerous and profound. It's maybe the most polarizing piece of evidence. For one, the handwriting analysis gave wildly conflicting results.
Right.
6 experts hired by the Ramseys concluded Patsy did not write it. But Boulder police experts and later the FBI found similarities between her handwriting and the note. They suggested she could have been the author.
So, conflicting experts right there.
Then it got even more complex. A federal court in a 2003 libel case reviewed the evidence and ruled it was highly unlikely Patsy wrote it. Now, that's a legal finding, not a criminal conviction, but it significantly impacted public perception, gave the Ramseys a kind of partial victory in the court of public opinion.
So you have experts on both sides.
Yes.
Which, for the public, just deepens the mystery, doesn't it? Doesn't clarify anything. Then there's the linguistics of the note.
Yeah, the language used.
It had phrases and quotes later traced back to movies like Ransom and Speed. And the overall phrasing was just highly unusual for a typical ransom demand, almost like someone trying to sound like a movie villain. This led many to believe it was staged, deliberately crafted to mislead, not a genuine note written under duress.
And another critical point bolstering that staging theory, the fingerprint evidence, or rather the lack of it. No fingerprints found on the note except Patsy's, likely from when she first handled it, and the investigators.
Nothing from a supposed kidnapper.
Right, you'd assume a kidnapper would leave some trace. Compounding this, a practice draft of the ransom note was found. On the very same notepad the final note was torn from, just tucked away in the house.
A practice draft. That detail really lends huge weight to the staging theory, doesn't it? Why would a real kidnapper sit there in the victim's house, writing out a practice draft, making edits, then carelessly leave it behind?
It makes no sense in that scenario.
That, plus the fact JonBenét's body was found in the house, it just contradicted the whole premise of a kidnapping. This led to these pervasive theories that the note was written after the murder to stage a kidnapping, throw off investigators, create an elaborate diversion.
Exactly.
The fundamental question then becomes, why write such an incredibly detailed 2.5-page ransom note if the victim is already dead and still in the house? It just doesn't align with the logic of a real kidnapping. It screams cover-up to many people.
And like you mentioned, the internet has only amplified these peculiarities. Amateur sleuths, online forums dissecting every word, speculating about everything from encrypted tone indicators to secret codes, though none of that has any real forensic support.
Right.
The ransom note is arguably the single most scrutinized piece of evidence here. It simultaneously points towards and away from family involvement. Its sheer peculiarity has fueled countless theories. Its authenticity, its purpose, still heavily debated. It's a riddle inside a riddle.
Which brings us to the flawed foundation of the initial investigation. Arguably the most devastating factor in this case remaining unsolved. The Boulder Police Department's handling of the scene. It's been almost universally criticized as incompetent. A textbook example of how not to secure a major crime scene.
Absolutely. It's a critical point that underpins so much of the mystery and frustration.
The lack of resources and experience was a big factor, something Boulder PD has since acknowledged. Only one detective, Linda Arndt, initially assigned.
One detective for a potential kidnapping, then homicide.
Horrifyingly inadequate. Boulder's last murder was back in 1991. So, a severe lack of recent hands-on homicide experience in the department. They were ill-prepared, personnel-wise, expertise-wise, for a crime this complex. Just overwhelmed.
And it led to massive scene contamination, complete lack of standard protocol, errors that proved fatal to the investigation. The house wasn't secured immediately. We talked about how over 10 people, friends, neighbors, family, entered the home before the body was even found, severe contamination.
Unbelievable.
Friends were reportedly allowed to clean surfaces, wipe countertops, move items, destroying potential evidence, fingerprints, fibers, DNA. No perimeter set up around the home to preserve outside evidence. And critically, the Ramseys weren't separated for immediate interviews. Standard protocol in almost any suspicious death or disappearance.
They were left together.
Left to come for each other. Emotionally understandable, maybe, but a huge investigative misstep.
And adding to the chaos were these significant interagency conflicts that popped up almost immediately.
Here.
Between Boulder PD and the district attorney's office.
Right, that internal friction, often playing out publicly, further complicated things. Created infighting, hindered a cohesive strategy. And despite identifying over 1,600 persons of interest by October 97 from tips and leads, the initial focus remained heavily, almost exclusively, on the family, creating what many call tunnel vision that potentially overlooked other paths.
It sounds like just a perfect storm of missteps, mistakes, missed opportunities. Even basic evidence collection, the chain of custody for crucial items like the ransom note, the garrote, even that large flashlight found nearby considered a potential weapon matching the head wound was subject to issues. Basic forensic best practices arguably just neglected.
These initial errors are so frequently cited as the primary reason the case is still unsolved. They fundamentally compromised critical forensic opportunities that you just can't get back. That golden hour for evidence was lost, and it set this difficult, almost insurmountable precedent for all later investigative efforts. Makes it incredibly challenging, even with modern tech, to untangle what really happened from what might have been tainted, destroyed, or lost in those critical early hours. The whole foundation was cracked from day one.
That brings us to the evidence analysis, especially the evolving and often, frankly, frustrating role of forensics. DNA evidence particularly had been such a game-changer in cold cases, offering a scientific path to answers. And it's central here, acting like a pendulum swinging public opinion back and forth.
It really has. Initially, back in 1997, unidentified male DNA was found under JonBenét's fingernails and on her underwear. This was a monumental discovery at the time, potentially pointing away from the family.
That was the first major piece of potential physical evidence suggesting an outsider, wasn't it? A crucial scientific clue amidst all the swirling speculation.
Exactly. Then, in 2003, another crucial development. Touch DNA found on her long johns matched that underwear sample. This was significant because it specifically excluded the Ramseys as the source of that DNA profile. First time, a concrete scientific finding pointed away from them.
Okay, so that leads to the big announcement in 2008.
Right. Based on this DNA, after years of intense public scrutiny and accusations, District Attorney Mary Lacy publicly exonerated the Ramsey family. She even issued an apology for the years of suspicion they'd endured. This DNA was seen as compelling enough to shift the official stance, offered the Ramseys a measure of public vindication.
But then the picture got more complicated again, didn't it?
It did. Significantly more complicated in 2016. Additional analysis indicated the DNA found was actually from at least 2 unknown individuals, not just one clean profile.
Good individual.
At least 2. This immediately muddied the waters again. A mixed sample presents a much harder challenge for identification than a single source profile.
Right, it's not a clean single profile. It adds layers of complexity, like trying to pull one clear voice from a crowded room. The tech is powerful, but a muddled signal is still muddled.
Yeah.
So what about the latest on the DNA? Is there still hope there?
Well, the whole trajectory of the DNA evidence from discovery to exoneration to ongoing retesting it really shows the evolving nature of forensic science and its impact on cold cases, and the persistent hope that tech can crack it. As recently as 2023, new testing on previously unexamined items, like the garrote, other ligatures, was completed.
Right.
Now, while that's a significant step, the results haven't been publicly released yet, so everyone's still kind of waiting. John Ramsey himself has been a strong, consistent advocate for using cutting-edge genetic genealogy, reportedly met with Boulder PD in January 2025 to push for this, expressing renewed confidence in the new leadership.
And just this February 2025, Boulder PD's annual update confirmed DNA retesting is ongoing. But they also openly acknowledged that mixed samples where DNA from multiple people is present maybe innocently transferred from clothes or surfaces, pose significant challenges for definitive genetic genealogy.
Right, it's not straightforward with mixed samples.
But they are actively monitoring advancements in techniques for handling them, understanding the potential this technology holds. It highlights that race between crime and detection where science slowly catches up.
And beyond the DNA, other physical evidence was collected, though often compromised by that scene contamination we talked about. There was a high-tech boot print found near the body, crucially, didn't match any family shoes. That supported the intruder theory.
Okay.
There were also metal grate squeak marks outside the basement window, maybe linked to that broken window pane, again suggesting external entry. Fibers from Patsy's jacket were found on the duct tape used on JonBenét, could be innocent transfer, or, if she was involved, direct handling.
Ambiguous.
Very. And notably, despite its potential as the weapon matching the head wound size, no fingerprints were found on that large flashlight discovered near the body. Raises questions wiped clean, never used. Some reports also indicated the cord and tape used weren't definitively sourced to the Ramsey home, though that point is debated too.
So each piece, whether a boot print or a fiber, it's a tangible clue that could support or challenge the main theories. But often, because of that compromised scene, they end up adding more questions than answers. Just another point of contention, not definitive proof. A puzzle with too many missing or blurred pieces.
Which leads us right into the wide shifting net of suspects. It's important to remember the investigation, especially initially, focused intensely on the immediate circle, the Ramsey family, under intense scrutiny from day one.
John Ramsey, the father, initially a prime suspect, partly because he moved the body, contaminating the scene, and also that unusual ransom demand matching his bonus. But, as we said, the unidentified DNA later played a key role in his official exoneration. Cleared by the DA in 2008, Patsy Ramsey, the mother, faced intense suspicion. Similarities in handwriting with the note, her demeanor on the 911 call. Sadly, she died of ovarian cancer in 2006 before the official exoneration. She was also cleared by the DNA in 2008, posthumously.
And then there's Burke Ramsey, the older brother, just 9 years old at the time. Theories persisted, particularly around an accidental killing, maybe over pineapple, a sibling dispute escalating violently.
Right, those theories were everywhere.
He was interviewed as a child, formally and informally, but crucially, never charged by authorities, never considered a suspect by the DA. And important to note, under Colorado law, kids under 10 cannot be charged with a crime anyway. Burke later sued CBS for defamation in 2016 over a special suggesting he was involved, settled in 2019. But that public suspicion has haunted him for decades.
Beyond the immediate family, the investigation cast a truly wide net. Over 1,000 persons of interest considered.
Let's touch on some other notable ones who were looked at and why they were cleared, just to show how many avenues police had to exhaust.
Yeah, there were quite a few. Bill McReynolds played Santa Claus at a Christmas party the Ramseys attended just hours before. Had a prior child molestation conviction, apparently made odd statements, but his DNA was no match. Died in 2002.
Gary Oliva, a known sex offender, actually confessed in letters, lived nearby, arrested in 2016 on unrelated child porn charges. But again, despite confessions, proximity DNA no match. Not charged in the Ramsey case.
Michael Helgoth, a local handyman, had access to the property. Reportedly owned high-tech boots, relevant to that print. Died by suicide in February '97, raising suspicions. DNA no match.
John Mark Carr, a teacher, made that sensational false confession in 2006. Claimed accidental killing. Made headlines worldwide, brief hope for closure. Once again, DNA no match. Released. Highlights the danger of false confessions in these big cases.
Linda Hoffman-Pugh, the housekeeper, knew the home layout intimately. Reportedly asked for a loan similar to the ransom amount shortly before. No direct evidence linked her. Cleared. Chris Wolf, a journalist with an unusual interest, some noted handwriting similarities to the note, sued the Ramseys for libel when they floated his name. Also cleared.
The sheer number and variety of suspects, and how most were eventually excluded, it really underscores the immense complexity and the enduring frustration here. It also highlights how initial police tunnel vision on the family, while maybe a natural instinct, can sometimes inadvertently impact the broader search, narrowing the scope too early, potentially delaying pursuit of other viable leads. It was chaotic, wide-ranging, and ultimately unproductive for many years.
This brings us right to the core of why this case is still so fiercely debated, why it occupies such a prominent place in true crime lore. The two dominant competing narratives. Intruder theory versus family involvement theory. These aren't just abstract ideas. They've shaped everything: public understanding, investigative direction, deeply divided opinion for decades.
Let's start with the intruder theory. This narrative is strongly supported by figures like Detective Lou Smith, highly respected former homicide detective, hired by the DA's office in '97, later resigned in protest, convinced an intruder did it.
Right, he was a big voice for that side.
The Ramseys themselves have been vocal, unwavering proponents, and it was famously championed by DA Mary Lacy, especially after the DNA emerged. John Ramsey, in particular, continues to advocate tirelessly for it, pushing for genetic genealogy to identify an intruder in recent 2024-2025 meetings with Boulder PD, believes it's the only path to justice.
So the mechanism here, according to proponents: unknown intruder enters, likely via the basement window, uses a stun gun or something to incapacitate JonBenét, assaults and kills her, then meticulously writes that elaborate movie, quote, laden ransom note to stage a kidnapping, throw investigators off, buy time to escape. What specific details make this plausible for them? What fits this puzzle?
The primary, arguably strongest piece of evidence cited is, first and foremost, that unidentified male DNA found under her fingernails and on her underwear, which, crucially, explicitly excluded the Ramseys. For many, that's the definitive scientific proof of an outsider. Additionally, the high-tech boot print near the body, not matching family shoes, and the disturbed basement window, with the suitcase right below it, further support the idea of external entry-exit. Proponents explain the staging elements, like that long, detailed note found inside, as an elaborate, almost amateurish attempt by the intruder to mislead, create confusion, gain time, maybe make it look like a kidnapping gone wrong. They believe the bizarre nature of the note actually points to a desperate attempt to misdirect, not a coherent plan.
And then on the other side, the family involvement theory. Equally, if not more, persistent in the public mind. This was notably the initial primary focus of Boulder PD for years, supported by figures like former Detective Steve Thomas, who wrote a book accusing them, and initially even FBI profiler John Douglas, though his views later evolved. Recent documentaries like that 2024 Netflix series, TV specials, they keep reviving and exploring this theory. It never quite goes away.
The mechanism here suggests an accidental killing, perhaps related to bedwetting rage by Patsy, or a sibling dispute with Burke escalating violently, unintentionally resulting in death from a single forceful blow. This accidental death then allegedly followed by an elaborate panicked cover-up, staging the scene to look like a kidnapping by an outsider.
Right, the cover-up theory.
A common, highly publicized variation suggests Burke accidentally struck her with a flashlight, and the parents, desperate to protect him and their reputation, staged the entire scene note, garrote everything to make it look like an intruder.
What circumstantial evidence makes this theory so compelling for its proponents, even facing the DNA evidence? What are their strongest points?
Proponents point to several key circumstantial things. First, those striking similarities between the ransom note handwriting and Patsy's writing, despite conflicting expert opinions. For many, they're just too strong to ignore. Second, the initial lack of forced entry, making an inside job seem more likely than an outsider finding a way in. Third, that discrepancy about the undigested pineapple parents deny feeding it to her, yet a bowl with Patsy's and Burke's prints is nearby, suggests a contradiction, potential dishonesty.
Okay, but how do they explain the DNA evidence then? The DNA that excluded the Ramseys?
They often argue that the touch DNA, being microscopic skin cells, could be from innocent transfer, maybe from clothing a surface JonBenét innocently contacted, not necessarily from the perpetrator. They emphasize touch DNA isn't as definitive as, say, semen or blood. Innocent transfer can and does occur, especially in a household environment.
So they question the significance of that specific DNA evidence.
Exactly. They argue it doesn't definitively rule out family involvement if it could have gotten there innocently.
It's crucial, looking at both theories, to acknowledge the inherent biases and how the media often sensationalized family guilt, led to this deeply polarized public opinion that still exists. The very public nature of her short life and tragic death made her a lightning rod for speculation.
And understanding the foundations of these two dominant theories is essential. They continue to shape public understanding, investigative direction. They help us analyze why the case remains so fiercely debated, unresolved, because each side can present compelling, albeit often circumstantial, arguments. It's a case where the evidence just doesn't neatly align to one single, clear narrative.
This whole saga is also tangled in this complex legal maze, under intense, often suffocating public scrutiny since day one. A grand jury was convened, 1998-1999, to hear evidence. A confidential process meant to determine if there was probable cause for indictment.
And famously, that grand jury did recommend indicting John and Patsy Ramsey for child abuse resulting in death and accessory to murder, a significant legal development suggesting the jury believed there was enough evidence for trial.
But that's not what happened.
No. The then district attorney, Alex Hunter, unilaterally decided not to indict them, cited insufficient evidence to secure a conviction beyond a reasonable doubt, publicly stated he couldn't prove the case. The statute of limitations for those specific charges expired in 2002. And as we discussed, the family was ultimately exonerated in 2008 via DNA, and Burke was never considered a suspect by the DA or the grand jury in its final public statement. But despite that initial recommendation, the case was officially reopened in 2009 and remains active with Boulder PD.
That tension between the grand jury recommendation and the DA's decision really highlights the complexities of legal thresholds, prosecutorial discretion. It's not just what a grand jury recommends, but what a prosecutor thinks they can prove beyond a reasonable doubt in court, a much higher bar. That decision remains deeply controversial for many.
And then there's the media coverage. Oh boy, this case just absolutely exploded, fueled significantly by those pageant photos, often sexualized, presented out of context in tabloids, leading to what many called a relentless tabloid frenzy.
Yeah, it was everywhere.
Outlets like CNN, various tabloids frequently accused the family without conclusive evidence, sensationalized every disturbing detail, often passing judgment long before facts were established.
And that media obsession never really let up, did it? Became almost a national pastime. Documentaries like the 2024 Netflix series, other TV specials like CBS's controversial 2016 one suggesting Burke was involved. They continuously fueled and revived different theories, kept the case firmly in the public eye, often relitigating it in the court of public opinion.
Absolutely. Public opinion remains fiercely split, many still believing in a family cover-up, others firmly convinced of an intruder. John Ramsey himself has publicly criticized the media for persistent bias against his family, for hindering the investigation.
What's crucial to grasp here is that the intense, often biased media scrutiny became like a character in the story itself. It profoundly shaped public opinion, arguably influenced investigators, created immense pressure to solve it, and certainly complicated efforts to find impartial truth. This case is a stark, enduring example of how media can both inform and, maybe more potently, distort public perception of criminal investigation. Makes objective analysis exceedingly difficult.
So where do we stand now, decades later? It's August 2025. This case, against all odds, still generates active developments, new headlines. Why does it keep lingering with so many unanswered questions?
It's not technically a cold case, is it? Boulder PD still calls it active.
That's right. In 2023, that new DNA testing on previously unexamined items we wrote, ligatures, was completed. Results still pending public release, keeping everyone in suspense. Then, 2024, the new Netflix series rekindled interest, prompted Boulder PD to form a dedicated cold case team specifically for this investigation, indicating renewed focus.
And as recently as January 2025, John Ramsey himself met with Boulder PD Chief Stephen Redfern, still pushing for advanced genetic genealogy to identify that unknown DNA.
Yeah.
He publicly expressed confidence in the new leadership, showing a willingness to collaborate, hope for a breakthrough, underscores his decades-long commitment to finding answers.
February 2025, the PD's annual update confirmed DNA retesting is ongoing, but they also acknowledged publicly that mixed samples pose significant challenges for definitive genetic genealogy. It's not as simple as getting one clean profile, more like unraveling tangled yarn, but they are monitoring advancements in techniques for handling them, understanding the science offers the greatest hope.
And the internet, as always, keeps the speculation alive, fueling amateur sleuths, armchair detectives. April 2025, some YouTube video claimed a shocking discovery, totally unverified, common in this case's online world. August 2025, discussions on X about prosecutor Mike Cain allegedly suspecting the parents persist, showing how public suspicion endures. The family counters, focusing on the undeniable, unidentified DNA. John Andrew Ramsey, JonBenét's half-brother, publicly stated it's not if but when for a breakthrough, showing the family's unwavering belief in forensics.
So why Unsolved after all this time? Despite tireless efforts, tech advancements, it's truly a confluence of factors, a perfect storm sealing its fate early on. That egregious crime scene contamination in the initial hours fundamentally compromised crucial evidence, making it incredibly difficult to establish a clear picture.
Beyond that, initial investigative errors, lack of experience within Boulder PD certainly played a profound role. Missing critical leads, mismanaging the scene.
And that early tunnel vision on the family may be a natural initial instinct. Child found in her home potentially diverted valuable resources, attention from other leads in those critical early days. narrowed the scope. Coupled with relentless media interference, sensationalism, public pressure, may well have hindered objective, systematic investigation, forced authorities to respond to outcry, not just evidence.
Then the DNA complexities. While it offered hope, led to exoneration, those mixed samples, the inherent risks of touched DNA transfer, where microscopic cells could be innocently transferred without direct crime-related contact, have made definitive conclusions so challenging. Even experts like Michael Baden question the conclusiveness of such DNA due to potential innocent transfers, highlights the nuanced limitations of science, even at its cutting edge.
As of August 16, 2025, Boulder PD calls it a priority. Investigated over 21,000 tips, numerous interviews, John Ramsey remains convinced advanced DNA tech will solve it, criticizing past inaction, believing the tools now exist.
This case really exemplifies the challenges in child homicides, especially within a family home. Statistically, odds often favor family involvement. Yet the specific evidence here, especially that DNA, points in multiple directions, creates an almost impossible puzzle to solve definitively with the existing, often compromised evidence. A tragic testament to how complex investigations become when initial errors are made.
So what does this all mean for us? We've navigated this complex web facts, theories, enduring mysteries surrounding JonBenét Ramsey. From that perplexing 2.5-page ransom note with its movie quotes, questionable origins, to the critical DNA that first exonerated, then complicated the picture, and the fundamental, heartbreaking challenges of crime scene management. This deep dive truly shows how a confluence of factors can leave even the most intensely scrutinized cases tragically unsolved.
Our hope is that by meticulously unpacking these layers, you now have a far clearer understanding of why this case continues to fascinate and, yes, frustrate. It's a stark reminder of how initial investigative steps, the immense weight of public perception, and the evolving yet still limited nature of forensic science all play crucial intertwined roles in the pursuit of justice.
It's a story highlighting both the incredible advancements in our abilities to find answers and the stubborn persistence of questions when the starting line itself is compromised.
This case forces us to confront not just a tragic death, but the enduring power of an unresolved narrative that just grips the public imagination. What does the JonBenét Ramsey case ultimately tell us about the limitations of our justice system, even with advancing technology, decades of effort? Are some mysteries destined to remain just that, forever shrouded in unanswered questions, competing theories? Or will the persistent push for answers, combined with breakthrough techniques like advanced genetic genealogy, eventually bring the definitive clarity so many seek for JonBenét? It's a question that keeps this case, and its young victim, firmly in our minds. A chilling reminder that some stories may never find their final chapter.